Hello guys, today I'm going to get started on this Claas Xerion 5000 build, and as you know I'm going to basically salvage the parts from this 4x4 RC car and try and squeeze them into the Claas Xerion. So the first thing we need to do is take the two models apart. We'll start with the RC tractor so that when we take the Claas Xerion apart we can put the gearboxes up to this and see how they're going to fit. Okay, so let's start taking this 4x4 car apart. This should be pretty straightforward because it looks like the whole car is screwed together, so that should make life a lot easier for us. Maybe we'll start with the wheels. So the wheels look to be held on with a little cross shaped pattern there. We might need to recreate that on our tractor wheels. The universal joint on the front of the RC car is a little bit more complicated than it is in here. That might make things a little more tricky, but we'll just have to get around that when we get there. Okay, so the trick to unscrewing the wheels is to hold the wheel tight so that this little cross pattern is locked into this so that the gearbox doesn't spin. Looks like we've a lot of the chassis to take apart here, so I'll just speed up the footage, and when I get to something interesting I'll slow it back down again when I need to talk. It doesn't look like we can just take the gearbox straight out because the drive shaft going to the rear of the, well, I suppose it goes to the transfer box in the middle of the model, is connected into the gearbox. So we pretty much have to disassemble the whole model to get to that point, I think. So I'll keep going. Here's our servo, just like looks like a normal hobby level servo. Although it has four wires. We'll have to take a closer look at that later. Looks like the servo should just unplug. That's very interesting. A 4-wire servo. I was not expecting in this. I think this is a servo saver on the output of this servo, which as far as I know, if you hit a wall or something really fast and it pushes the wheel, forces the wheel, instead of braking the gears in the servo, this thing should just trip. But I think that's what that is. I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to have a look at that too. Now we're getting closer to the parts that we actually want. Our two gearboxes, our motor, but we might replace that motor because I think it's probably too fast, and the electronics. We might need to replace those two. We'll just we'll see how it goes. If we don't replace them, we're pretty much limited to just the drive functions. So we'd have no lifting arms, which would be a bit of a disappointment. Now we can see our circuit board. We have a little radio module. It's not an NRF24. I'm not sure what it is. I'll just read the number to you now. It's ARF2496K. So we can have a look at that, see what it is. That has to be the radio chip because there's nothing under this PCB, only the clock crystal. So that's about it. Looks to be a little chip in there. Maybe that controls the servo or something. Not sure. There's a rather large chip here, which is surely the microcontroller. It's had its markings removed, so either it's a custom chip or they just didn't want people knowing what type of chip they were using. These big transistors, or it could be MOSFETs maybe, they are surely to drive the motor. That should provide the power. Yeah, you see you have 4 of them, so that's actually a H bridge. So this is like a high power version of what's inside the TB6612 FNG chip that we use, because we only use low power motors, but this big motor is going to require a lot more power than we would be using. So for that reason they need these bigger MOSFETs or possibly transistors. I'm not sure exactly what they are. So basically it's exactly the same way that we make our RC tractors. We have a radio module, an NRF24 in our case. We have a microcontroller, which is an Arduino in our case. We have a motor driver, which is the TB6612 in our tractors. And that's pretty much it. It's basically built in exactly the same way that we would build our tractor. So there's our motor. What I might try to do, because obviously this car is very fast, it's not really going to work for our tractor, and because it's so fast it probably doesn't have a huge amount of torque, but we kind of need the high torque for a tractor because obviously you need a lot of pulling power with the tractor. So what I'll either do is modify this gear to fit onto an N20 drive motor, or maybe I'll try and 3D print a gear that'll fit the N20 motor that will mate to this gearbox. That'd be a little bit trickier to do, but I could give it a go and we'll see if it works out or not. So now we're down to the 2 differentials and the whatever kind of a gearbox is built in here, and it's all built into the chassis. We're probably going to have to cut the chassis and modify the length of this bar to get it to work in our model, because it's highly unlikely that they are exactly the right length to suit the wheels of the Claas tractor. Actually, that is very, very close to being the right length. It might be a millimeter or two too long maybe, but it's very, very close. Take a look at this. You see, if I line up the output from the rear differential, our front one is maybe a millimeter in front of the front wheels, but it's pretty good. It's so close, in fact, I don't think we would need to modify this chassis. We might just have to fit this entire chassis in as it is, which would make things very, very simple if we can do that. Now that might not be possible, but I think that's what I'm going to try and do. So that is so close. I wasn't expecting that, so that's pretty good. Hopefully we'll be able to squeeze that in as it is then, so that would make life a hell of a lot easier. We could probably give it the millimeter on the back there without too much difficulty, or maybe give it a half a millimeter each way. That might be better, but we'll see. It might hit the exhaust on the front here when it's fully locked over, but we can work around that. Well, it looks like the RC car is well suited for this conversion, so let's see how the Claas looks, what's inside the Claas. Hopefully it's mostly empty space. Looks like this might be the reason the steering isn't so good. It's not the best Siku design steering. Normally it's a gear that mates much better. This is just like a kind of a shaft bent in a way that you operate this little thing. It's almost like they intended to make it powered by a servo at some point. Looks to be a space under that. Anyway, I don't think that's the best steering that Siku have ever built, but that doesn't matter because we're going to be removing that anyway. So, looks like there's a lot of space in here. We're going to want our gearbox in there, something like that. So connection to the rear wheels shouldn't be a problem. The front is going to be a little more tricky because we kind of need to fit these pieces into the wheels, but I'm probably going to have to kind of hollow the wheels out and put these into them to some extent so that we can get reasonable steering, but hopefully that will work out alright. I'm really excited about how well this chassis has, or this chassis from the RC car seems to fit in here. I mean, that's a pretty, it's even close to the right width. It is actually, it's narrow enough to fit into most of the model. It looks like we'll have to take a good bit out of the top of the model here to fit the gearbox in there, or maybe we could put it upside down, might be better. It's not going to be the simplest build in the world. Looks like we're going to have to take most of the mounting point for this away, and we're probably going to have to cut a big section up through the bottom here, which will stick up, so we'll have to cover that over with something. But mostly I think this is going to be a pretty straightforward build. As you can see, we have all this space for the electronics down under the cab. Lots of space, lines up pretty good. The real difficulty is going to be in connecting the wheels. So the front wheels in particular, the rear wheels mightn't be as bad, but they won't be easy either. It's still going to be tricky. It's going to be a tricky build. But we might be able to reuse some of the old RC car pieces to mount to the wheels somehow. We'll try and do that. Well, this is looking to me like it's going to be a very interesting build. I'm not sure what I'm going to start with, to be honest, but make sure and subscribe so you can see the rest of this build. And if you like this video, hit the like button. And if you have any comments or suggestions, you can post in the forum, or we have a new forum, rctractorguy.com, so you can head on over there. And hopefully this is going to be an interesting build. I'm looking forward to having a real 4x4 RC tractor. I think that would be pretty cool. But that's pretty much everything for this video, so thanks very much for watching.